So guys, welcome back to the channel. And you know what? I'm just going to talk. I'm not even going to edit this video. I'm just going to let it rock out. I appreciate everything that God has done for me. I have a regular security job. I have a YouTube business that I just started off for fun and it turned to something that I thought it would never turn into. Even though I don't get crazy views, I get a couple thousand here and there, but it's able to keep the money up enough where it's like a part-time job where my wife doesn't have to work. She could just go through her surgery. She's going through heart surgery now. Well, not right now, but she's going to be going through heart surgery within the next month or two. And it's like I'm just fortunate enough to be able to take care of my family. When I gave my life to the Lord, right, it took out all the ease of the nonsense that everyone else thinks is important. It is not important to me. But anyway, the point of this video is that I wanted to talk about the economy has never been good for anybody, for regular people, ever. So let me kind of break that down to you. Now, we're living in a time where people are mad about what's going on with food stamps, right? Where Trump administration and stuff is fighting the Democrats, and they're like, food stamps, and they're saying yes, food stamps. But last election, people were really voting about gender affirming care, which is not even a real thing, by the way, and illegal immigration. Let me tell you something. My entire time, 39 years on this earth, I have never been concerned of what an illegal immigrant has ever done because it has never affected my job or my livelihood ever. It wasn't only to these last couple years that people were concerned about it, right? And before you say anything, oh, they're taking the jobs, who's giving them the jobs? See, that's the part that a lot of people don't want to talk about. We can play semantics all day and blame them and this side and Democrats, but there's only so long that you can keep lying to yourself. And I'm one of those people that people hate talking to because I'm not going to let the delusion of foolishness just keep happening. I'm not. If you want to talk to people that want to just blame other people for their problems, cool. Stay in that bubble and be miserable your entire life. But someday you have to grow up and be an adult and try to do things differently for yourself and realize who the real problem is. So I'm going to give you some examples of what I'm talking about, and you tell me if I'm crazy. So back in the day, I forget which year it is, but correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't rich people use poor people's children to work in like coal mines and like work in mines and stuff like that back in the day before there were like rights for consumers and stuff? Remember, it wasn't that long ago that men and women were able to vote. I think, as a matter of fact, women were able to vote 10 years after men. Homeowners were the only ones who were allowed to vote back in the day, I think, back then, if you own a piece of land. So the law was entirely different. Imagine sending your child to school just so that they can learn to be a worker, so that they can work in the factories and the mines and everything else. People had to advocate and fight for laws to stop their children from being killed off because rich people, remember, all rich people aren't evil, but you got to understand that the root of evil for a lot of people is money, it's wealth, it's status. They want to be looked upon as godly figures. That's where idolatry really comes from. That's why celebrity worship is so big, right? And these people were willing to sacrifice your children just so that they don't have to have their children work. That's how evil the world is. And even if you fast forward it, right, whether it's Martin Luther King's day, I'm just going to just time skip. They didn't even want to treat people like regular human beings. There was even a time where I forgot which type of Asians it was, whether it was Japanese or Korean or whatever it was. Do you remember they needed a white American in order to sign off for them so that they could bring people to here to work? It's crazy the way the world actually is. It's like, listen, I know Netflix is very expensive and food is expensive, but some people really went through some really turbulent times. And when I just put that in perspective, I'm like, the world has never been a great place for a lot of people. People easily forget what happened in history, and that's what they want you to forget because they're going to keep oppressing you every stage of your life. Every generation is getting oppressed in one way or another, and you don't even realize the laws or regulations that you're giving up. The things that your forefathers, whatever, fought for, you are losing a lot of those rights, and they are aware of it. And they don't want people to be educated. That's why they don't teach law. They don't teach tax code. They don't teach you anything in school of use. They teach you garbage so that you could be a worker at the end of the day and be blind and ignorant. That's why so many people have degrees that are absolutely worthless, like gender studies and science. Not science, but like dumb science, like studying, I don't know, paint. I don't know. There's weird degrees out there, right? But also, here's another example that made me laugh. I was really just thinking about this at work. Just like, man, I'm so happy that I don't stick around these type of people anymore. I remember when there was a time, well, I wasn't born at this time, but there was a time where when cars came out, right, they tried to advocate that seatbelts weren't good for people, that nobody wanted it. So they knew that this would save lives. There were probably case studies and everything explaining that it would save lives. but they would rather save a couple dollars instead of just saving the consumer slash customer that they want. If you want to sell a product to someone, don't you want to make it as safe as possible so that the person wants to be a reoccurring customer? They don't even care about that anymore. That's how bold they are nowadays. Remember the minimum wage? People kept saying all these years. I remember this. And there was a bunch of people, and I called them crazy, and I called them liars, and I said that I know you're lying. I'm like, I know there's no data to support this. If you raise the minimum wage, they kept saying that the mama and pop stores won't be able to afford it, and we shouldn't do that. It's bad for companies, right? And there were people out there that bought that nonsense, and they were advocates for this nonsense. Why do you trust your government so much after all the lies that they've told you? You can look at history and pinpoint all the lies and the illegal things that they have done throughout the years, and you still trust them with your livelihood? I know I don't. It just doesn't make sense to trust someone that I know has my worst interest. That's like knowing that Judas is among you and I'm going to keep trusting this guy. No, I'm not going to trust him. Jesus did it for a reason because he knew he was going to die on the cross. He had to prove a point. But the rest of us should have the discernment to know a bad thing that's in front of our faces. And a lot of people just ignore the signs. Like common sense is long gone. So anyway, back to mom and pop stores, right? Let me ask you something. If mom and pop stores were so important to government, why is it that there's no support for any of them? Why is it that if you're an entrepreneur, there's no support for your private business? If you go into real estate, they don't support you in real estate. They don't even give you anything. What, they give you $500 in a trans pass in order to start your business? They start taxing you immediately. They don't help you. As a matter of fact, most of the mom and pop stores that used to be able to undercut some of the superstores no longer exist. So I guess that was a myth, huh? The other myth they said was the minimum wage doesn't need to increase. Really? So if minimum wage doesn't need to increase, isn't it safe to say that rent doesn't need to increase or food prices doesn't need to increase? Have you ever asked yourself why food prices increases? No? I know you haven't. I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why with my C student brain. I won't give you the technical reason, but I'm going to give you a reason that you probably never thought about. Have you ever heard of a guy named Louis Rossmann? He talks about right to repair. You want to know why right to repair is so important? It's because people, farmers, regular people like me and you, others that worked on cell phones, iPhones, things like that. Did you know that these companies advocated and fought against the everyday man to be able to repair the products that they have? Remember when they told you that a battery needs to be in the back of the phone soldered in because it helps with the battery life? Tell me something. Let's think logically about this. Why would a battery need to be soldered in order to have better battery life? What metric? How did that even make sense? I'll give you a couple seconds to think about that for a moment. I know there's some of you out there that are going to try to use some math and science and say something dumb, but no, it's not true. The fact is, if you're able to replace your battery, that means you have more control to be able to order a battery and you can keep your device for longer. They don't want you to do that. So they make it where devices are soldered into the phone in some cases. You used to be able to go to a store and get it replaced. Why is that repair shops are closing down now? Why? Because they don't have the tools in order to do it anymore. Why? Because companies are making new screws and new attachments and things that only they sell, and they're not giving the schematics or anything to other companies. You don't have to believe me. Ask the military complex why they can't replace certain things, because their contracts won't allow them because they don't have the tools necessary to do so. Ask farmers why their tractors or certain things don't work anymore a certain way, because the newer stuff has chips in it and they have parts that they don't have access to or are not allowed to buy. There have been so many videos talking about Apple and so many companies that refuse to repair stuff, but instead want you to buy it brand new because they never intended on you to be able to actually replace the parts. That's anti-consumer. So when you have these type of practices put into the workplace, you are effectively killing other people's businesses. You are taking the rights away from these people. You are monopolizing everything that you're doing. This is why Apple's as big as they are. This is why Samsung, this is why Motorola, this is why all those companies, even though I like their phones, it doesn't change the fact that what they're doing is very predatory to the everyday person. They are purposely making it where you can't do anything anymore for yourself. You have to pay their prices for whatever product it is that they want. Otherwise, you're screwed, which means they can charge whatever they want. That's why things keep increasing. So let's ask yourself another question. Why is it that this phone could be sold for $49 or free as a port under a prepaid carrier, but it's $550 under Motorola's main website when it first came out. But then it dropped dramatically to $299 new price. It's because the phone was never actually worth the asking price. It's because they understand that it's people's nature to want to buy the new thing that's out. If you're a fan of something, a lot of fans don't have any discernment skills. They don't know how to say no to something because they just want the next thing. Guess what? I was one of those people too. I bought phones, brand new stuff. I was spending money. Granted, I was selling it and making money back and finding ways to get around the high exuberant prices, but it didn't change the fact that I still had an addiction to electronics because I wanted the new next shiny thing. And guess what? All it did was cost me money. Money that I could have saved to do anything else with. They had a grip on us so deeply in this market, whether it's Pokemon games, whether it's streaming services, whether it's whatever you can name of, whatever you can think of. They've increased the prices for everything. And what's the common excuse that they normally use? This side said that it costs too much. This side is charging you this much. But weren't you the guys that own the companies that increased the prices? Weren't you the ones that made the schematics for something and didn't give it away to the other companies? You could have just sold the parts third sale or third party and let them fix it. You could let repair shops fix things so that you don't have to worry about it. If anything, that takes the responsibility off of you. You could even work with the repair shops and have contracts where you would defer their services over to certain places so that you take a cut of whatever it is they're doing. You give a discount for the parts and everyone can make money. But they won't even do that because they generally don't care about people and their livelihood. Because we're living in a time where gain is all that matters, and these people will let a starving baby down the street. They would step over them or step on them if it meant that they could make money. That's the world that we live in, and it's always been that way. You just don't realize it because you're living in your bubble. But when you look at the wars, the histories of things that's going on in this world, it's always been a bloody, horrible place. It's a beautiful world at the same time, but also human nature is just ugly to its core because they want, and a lot of people aren't willing to work for it. They're willing to cut corners. They're willing to commit crimes. We don't have a society where hard work is rewarded anymore. So most people are giving up. But the thing is, if you're a believer of Christ, believer of God, I don't concern myself with that. I went to a security job, dude. Like, I need y'all to understand that when I initially started, I think I did it in this video because I re-recorded, but initially in one of the videos, I think it was this one, I actually told you guys how much $20 an hour is. If you don't remember, because again, I did re-record a video and I'm my own mind and I lose myself sometimes. $20 an hour times 160 hours, which is 40 hours a week, 4 times 160 equals to, I believe, $3,200. And if you do the math, I know my math is off, but you would times 32 times 0.8 roughly is the taxes, unless they actually increased, probably did. You're probably looking at about 25.90 something, 25.60 something every home take pay with a $20 an hour fucking job. Excuse my French. So if you can't survive off of $20 an hour, what exactly are you supposed to make? So all those people saying pull yourself up by your bootstraps, shut up. You have no idea what you're talking about. Your house costs a bag of a bag of bubble gum that costs 2 cents a pack and a pack of Skittles. That's what you pay for your house. What we're paying for in rent is way more than what you're paying for in a mortgage, easily. Your 20 years of $200 a month or $300 or $400, $500 a month is nothing compared to having to rent a room for $650, $700, $800. You don't understand the struggle that people are going through because times have changed. Just like if most of those old people that said pull yourself up by your bootstrap was to sit in front of a computer, they wouldn't know what to do. They would not be employable. So humble yourself and understand that times change. Your Father's Day was different than your day. Your Mother's Day was different than the current day. It changes. Times change. And I think we need to have empathy for the people that are going through the things they're going through now, because even with the careers, they're struggling. Like, imagine being a nurse practitioner, a CNA, a LPN, if it's called, or RN, and all these different jobs. Imagine being an electrician or a mechanic or a truck driver, and you're still not making decent money because the cost of living has just increased to the point where it's just not affordable anymore. That's the times we're living in. And each era had their problems. And the common denominator for each era was that the politicians that you guys put in power, you old people that don't read, that don't write, that don't educate yourself, that know nothing about law, you put these people into power and you allowed them to abuse and abuse and abuse and abuse and abuse the system. And the same could be for me. I voted for Obama because of pure ignorance back in the day. The first time, after the first time, I started paying attention to politics and realized he was a terrible choice. But nevertheless, the damage was done. And then when I voted for the other side, which I did vote for Trump the first time and the second time, right? Because I thought he was the better of both powers. Either way, you were fucked. Excuse the French, but you were. Because one side wanted to chop your children up and make profit off of them, and the other side wanted to get rid of the illegals. They both of them are sides are rich. Neither one of them have your best interests. And to be honest with you, I understand why people just walk away from politics and stop voting. I totally understand it. I 100% understand why they do that. You may say, oh, the forefathers fought for shut up. They fought for something and they were tricked too. People were tricked to going into wars. People were tricked to doing everything. Government and big pharma and any organization, small or big, even regular people, if they have evil in their hearts, they're going to say and do anything in order to take advantage of you at the highest level and at the local level. It is what it is. And like I said before, following God really made me realize that I can't follow any of these people. I can't agree with any of these people. I can only agree with what's right. When I see someone in front of my face, before when I look at bummed, I'm like, oh, you're disgusting. But now I'm just like, no, they have a hard time. Even though people do it to themselves, it's still my job as a decent human being to show what the works on this earth to help people as much as I can within reason. Most people have lost that level of empathy, and it's sad to see. But anyway, that's it. Just like and subscribe like always for more content. Most of my content is a lot better than this. I've been talking about the Bible lately and talk about verses and stuff and how we fall into temptation of different things. But I just wanted to share this because uncomfortable truths need to be said. And, you can't live on your mama's tit forever, man. You got to grow up someday and see it for what it is. Anyway, like and subscribe like always. I will see you guys in the next video. Till then, take your peace. God bless. I'm out.